What's going on, fight fans? Back again before this weekend in UFC 264. It's a huge weekend in sports. We've got the John Deere Classic, obviously UFC 264. We also got the NBA Finals, the Euros going on. So a lot to look forward to and a lot of fun this weekend. I'm obviously hyped as heck for the fights this weekend. We got Conor McGregor fighting Dustin Poirier again. We've got Sean O'Malley strutting his stuff. Dricus Du Plessis, a huge up-and-comer. A ton of other great fights as well. So a lot to look forward to. And here is my top fades and sleepers for GPP picks this weekend for UFC 264. If you're new to my channel, my fades are going to be the guys that I think are being a little bit overhyped this weekend. Guys that are getting a little bit too much ownership, might be a little bit too high in price, whatever it is, they're going to be my fades. I won't be playing them. In terms of my sleeper picks, these are going to be guys that are either priced down a little bit too low. I think they have a lot of value. Maybe some people that people are overlooking that are projected to be lower ownership. Essentially, guys, I think they're going to be really good to play and they're going to help you out in your lineup. So without further ado, let's hop into the picks for UFC 264. I also wanted to mention that I dropped my Patreon page for my UFC projections this week. It's only $1 for a month and you get access to my projections for every single fighter on this weekend's card. I don't just give my projections, I also include my ownership rankings, also include my winning percentages, gambling odds, what I think the gambling odds should be, some game theory notes, all kinds of stuff to help you guys out. You're also willing to ask as many questions as you want. I'm here to help you guys get better at DFS. Again, it's just $1. Make sure to check it out. Link is in the description of this video. I think it's a great value. So we're going to start off with the fades for this weekend. And at number 3, we have Trevin Giles, who is priced at $8,000. He is a -110 favorite against Dricus Du Plessis, but I think that is a lot of fool's gold. He also comes in with a relatively high ownership projection. I have him projected for 27.5% ownership. That's getting towards the top maybe 5 or 6 in terms of ownership on the entire slate. So he's somebody who's going to be a core foundational piece for a lot of people. And he's a huge fade for me. I usually love to play him in DFS. He's a relatively high scorer in MMA. He scores a lot of takedowns. He does it with his control time. But against Dricus Du Plessis, he's going against an absolute stalwart. And honestly, I think he loses probably in a first or second round knockout fashion. Giles is more of a wrestler by type. He's somebody who, again, scores with his takedowns. He does have some powerful hands. We have seen him win by knockout 2 times ago. But I think that knockout was a little bit of fool's gold as well. So he ended up scoring that knockout in the 3rd round. It was a lot more to do with wear and tear than it was due to his power striking. So on paper, it looks like it was a good finish. It was a good fantasy performance, but I don't think it's something that he can replicate. Again, he's somebody whose a majority of his finishes have been by submission. We haven't seen a submission in the UFC though. And overall, there's a lot really worrying me about Trevin Giles. Dricus Du Plessis has a 100% finish rate. He's an absolute stud in the MMA. And to be quite honest with you, I think this is a showcase type of performance for Du Plessis. So at 27.5% ownership, he's just garnering way too much attention for my needs. He also doesn't have the high ceiling that I'm looking for, especially in fantasy MMA. At number 2, we have Alen Amedovski. He comes in at $9,000. Is a little bit more of a favorite. He's a -140 favorite, fighting against Huya Zhong. And just to be honest with Amedovski, he was somebody who came in, -200 at the beginning of the week. Now he's down to -140, and you're not really getting good value with those type of odds. If we take a look at his track record in the UFC, he's 0-2. He's looked sluggish in both of his starts, both decision losses, and Zhong is no thrill either, right? He comes in 0-2. He has no finishes to his record, and I'm really expecting a low pace, low excitement. You're not really going to find a finish in this type of fight. And to be honest with you, I'm not going to have either side of it. It's not like I'm fading Amedovski because I love Yazong. It's because I hate both of them. And, neither one of them is going to push the pace. The only way this scores either way, big for either of them, is if you get a finish. And again, they're 0-2 in the UFC. There's no signs that that's coming. And as a result, he's a fade. And if I actually have him projected around 28% ownership, a lot of casuals, especially when it comes to MMA, will just pay up for some of those guys high up the board without even checking their Vegas odds, right? So his odds at -140, he should be priced closer to the $8,500, $8,600 range at the very most. He's overpriced, overhyped, and an easy fade. At number 1, we have Zhalgas Zhumagulov. He's a $9,300 fighter at -300. He's projected to be owned in about 33% of lineups. I have him at 31.5 right now. Wouldn't be surprised he came in a little bit higher. And he's another guy who's 0-2 in the UFC. He's not been fighting well in the UFC. He has a lot of potential. He comes from a camp of very, very high potential, very good fighters, but he hasn't shown that same type of potential. Vegas odds makers obviously have a lot of faith in him. He is a minus 300 favorite, but even against someone like Jerome Rivera, who we've never seen before, he's probably going to lose this fight. We haven't seen any upside from Zhumagulov, and at $9,300, you can price down. You could go to Conor McGregor, right, at $8,000, or Dustin Poirier at $8,100 and get a lot more upside. And you're looking at guys that have higher chances of winning. Zhumagulov is just fool's gold this week, in my opinion. He's one of those guys who's priced up just because the Vegas odds opened really, really drastically at the beginning of the week. I believe he opened at like minus 450 or something like that. He's only minus 300 now, so obviously we've seen some line movement. And overall, he just doesn't have the potential I'm looking for. And again, it's not the type of fight where I'm fading him because I like Jerome Rivera. I'm not playing Jerome Rivera either. He's just a lower pace fighter. We haven't even seen him before on the UFC or one of the major circuits. And I'm definitely willing to avoid that fight. And now for my sleeper picks. At number 3, we have the man, Dricus Du Plessis, an $8,200 fighter who's fighting Trevin Giles, my fade from before. He's a minus 110 favorite and only expected to be owned in 20% of lineups in my modeling. So he comes in with a 100% finish rate. He wins 40% of them by knockout, 60% of them coming by submission. And while he's new to the UFC, his first time out was an absolute thriller. He went out, he got a first round win, was just unleashing haymakers on his opponent. And now while it's a complete step up in improvement against Trevin Giles, Du Plessis is somebody who has done well in the international circuit. He's made a name for himself, become the champion of multiple organizations. And he's likely a higher pedigree fighter than Trevin Giles. Even though Trevin Giles does have 5 fights in the UFC, a lot of the international circuits, they're just getting closer in terms of their talent level. Especially some of the ones overseas, over in Europe, where Du Plessis came up. They're obviously not on the same level as UFC. Their pay is higher in the UFC. You get a lot more publicity, but the gap is very much so narrowing. So I'm really buying in on Du Plessis. I think this is the last time that we're going to see him as an underdog. He has a very well-rounded game. We showed off the haymakers last time out, but again, he wins most of his fights by submission. He's somebody who has tons of submissions. He has a really good guillotine, really good jiu-jitsu as well, and it's just a matter of time before he becomes a superstar, in my opinion, on the UFC. So at 20% ownership, I'm going to be 50% plus on him this week. I think he gives you great leverage, great value. He may even be the highest scorer on the entire slate. So I may even lock him in, so we'll have to see about that. At number 2, we have Greg Hardy, another one of my core plays from the other UFC video, and he comes in 7-3 at a DK price of $7,800. I'm fighting Tai Tuivasa, so it's a big heavyweight matchup. Got a lot of guys with a lot of power. He is a slight underdog at plus 110, but I believe you're getting a lot of value at $7,800 with that plus 110 price tag, as well as his ownership number. So he comes in at 18% ownership. That's one of the lowest that we have on the slate, especially for somebody priced over $7,500. And Greg Hardy has a huge potential to put up a finish. When we've seen Greg Hardy do well in the past, he doesn't have a decision win to his name. He's won by knockout. He has huge power. He has a lot of cardio, a lot of volume for somebody in that heavyweight division. He averages over 7 significant strikes per minute. Those numbers are more reminiscent of the guys that we see in the featherweight division, maybe even like the middleweight, welterweight divisions, those kind of things. But again, he's a former NFL player. Obviously, he has very good cardio. He has a lot of quick twitch muscles as well, and it's very apparent in his fight game. Tuivasa could not be any more opposite of him. He's somebody who isn't in shape, to be quite honest with you, but he has a ton of power. He throws about 1 or 2 punches per minute. He's not going to win a decision. In fact, he's never won a decision for. Every single one of his wins is by knockout, which looks good for UFC purposes. And again, Tuivasa hardly has a winning record in MMA. He's somebody who really keeps his contract because of his wins. When he wins, it's by devastating knockout. He's more of a crowd pleaser than he is an MMA fighter. And this fight for Greg Hardy, it sets up really well for him. Tuivasa's not going to wear him out. He's not going to be wearing on him with his wrestling or anything like that. Hardy's going to be able to piece him up from distance. And not only do I like the price tag, not only do I like the ownership projection, I like his chances to get a knockout. Tuivasa doesn't have a great gas tank. You can only take so many punches before you eventually just give up. Your body gives up on you. And I have Greg Hardy by round 3 knockout. I think he eventually wears him down and punches it home. Especially with his high volume, that's going to be more than enough to pay it off. And at number 1, we have Yana Kunitsyaya. Sorry if I butchered that foreign last name. Comes in at $7,900, fighting against Irene Aldana, and she's just a plus 100 underdog. So she's even money, essentially 50-50 in terms of the expected winning percentage there. And she comes in at a 13.5% ownership projection. So Yana is one of my favorite plays on the slate, especially as we've gone fighter to closer to fight night. And a lot of that has to do with those Vegas odds. You know, she started the week as a sizable underdog, was closer to the 150 plus 160 range, now closer to even money. And if we take a look at her MMA performances over the last year or so, she's put up a lot of finishes. She averages over 73 points per contest. For women's MMA, that is one of the best in the entire world. She's capable of ending fights with her hands, also capable of ending them with skillful submissions. It really gives you a good floor when it comes to DFS. Irene Aldana is obviously the favorite in this fight. She's been finished in the past, but hasn't shown finishing upside herself. So if I'm going to take a side on this fight, it's going to be Yana's side. At $7,900, you're getting salary relief. You're getting ownership leverage. She's, again, only supposed to be owned in 13.5% of lineups. And again, I think you have a really solid ceiling as well. She's capable of finishing the fight no matter where it goes. And if she's able to do so, she'll end up being one of the best plays on the entire slate. That's all for my fades and sleepers for UFC 264. Make sure to check out my channel if you guys want even more data-driven advice. I cover the NFL, NBA, PGA Tour, and more, so make sure to check it out. All of my analysis is data-driven. I use mathematical modeling, custom modeling, visualizations to help you guys get a better grasp of who to play in DFS. Make sure to like and subscribe if you guys enjoyed the content. I'm always coming out with videos for the MMA, again, UFC, NFL, all that stuff. So make sure to subscribe to catch it as soon as I drop it. Sometimes I drop content well ahead of time to give you guys very early previews for stuff. Sometimes I'm the first to drop content, especially for golf. So make sure to get out there, see it as soon as I post it. It's a huge win-win and helps me with growing the channel. Good luck in your lineups this weekend, guys. There's some huge contests, especially for UFC 264. Lots of money to be made. So if you guys end up taking something down, make sure to tag me in it so I can shout you guys out on the next video. With that being said, I'll see you guys next time. And again, good luck.